Ethan Cooper had finally tracked the galaxy's deadliest predator to its fetid lair on the jungle moon of Vorta Prime. The air was thick and humid, heavy with the stench of rotting vegetation and alien spores. But Ethan barely noticed the oppressive atmosphere as he emerged from his cloaked shuttle, a thrill of anticipation pulsing through his battle-hardened frame. This hunt was different. There was more at stake than the hefty bounty on Korvac's head. Ethan needed the credits from this job to finance his private army and forge his own empire among the lawless stars. And Korvac was the key, a nightmarish alien renowned for its lethal prowess, lightning reflexes, and ruthless cunning. Capturing such a legendary beast would solidify Ethan's reputation as the greatest mercenary in the galaxy. But as Ethan ventured deeper into the fungal jungle, he realized something was amiss. The dense foliage seemed to close in around him, blocking the fading light and muffling all sound. An eerie stillness settled over the primeval landscape, broken only by the crunch of Ethan's boots and the hum of his pulse rifle. It was as if the entire moon was holding its breath. Ethan sensed the creature before he saw it, a sudden prickling at the nape of his neck, an instinctive urge to whirl and confront the threat. But when he turned, pulse rifle shouldered and finger poised on the trigger, he found himself staring not into the maw of a ferocious predator, but the inquisitive eyes of an unexpectedly docile Korvac. Instead of attacking, the immense creature slowly extended a tentacle, probing Ethan's armored suit with surprising delicacy. In that moment, Ethan understood that Korvac was far more than a simple beast. Behind those glittering black orbs lay a profound intelligence and self-awareness that defied everything Ethan had been told about the apex predator. And as the human and the alien regarded each other in the primordial depths of an alien jungle, an inexplicable bond began to form between them, a connection that would reshape the destiny of the galaxy. As Ethan and Kor raced through the fungal jungle, the sound of pursuit grew louder behind them. The Araxis extraction team was hot on their heels, determined to capture the valuable Korvac at any cost. Ethan knew they had to get off Vorta Prime fast, before the corporation's superior numbers and firepower overwhelmed them. Ducking into the dense underbrush, Ethan led Kor to where he had concealed his shuttle. The sleek black vessel was barely visible beneath its cloaking field, but Ethan's keen eyes quickly located the hatch. "Inside, quickly," he urged, ushering the massive creature into the cargo hold. Kor complied, folding his serpentine body into the cramped space with surprising agility. Ethan threw himself into the pilot's seat and fired up the engines, his fingers flying over the controls. The shuttle shuddered as it lifted off, its cloaking field shimmering against the verdant canopy. Plasma bolts sizzled past the viewscreen as the Araxis team opened fire, but Ethan deftly evaded their shots, weaving the shuttle through the towering trees. With a final burst of acceleration, the shuttle broke free of Vorta Prime's atmosphere and plunged into the star-flecked void. Ethan punched in the coordinates for Neon City, a notorious hive of scum and villainy on the edge of human space. It was the perfect place to lay low and plan their next move. As the shuttle hurtled through the void, Ethan glanced back at Kor. The Korvac met his gaze with those unfathomable black eyes, and Ethan felt a strange sense of kinship with the alien creature. They were both outcasts now, hunted by the most powerful corporation in the galaxy. But together, they might just stand a chance. The shuttle touched down on the outskirts of Neon City, its hull still warm from the heat of re-entry. Ethan stepped out into the grimy, neon-lit streets, Kor close behind him. The air was thick with the stench of exhaust fumes and cheap stim sticks, but to Ethan, it smelled like freedom. He led Kor through the winding alleys, past flickering holographic advertisements and seedy pleasure dens. Raucous laughter and pulsing music spilled from dingy cantinas, but Ethan ignored the temptations of Neon City's nightlife. He had business to attend to. Ethan ducked into a dimly lit alleyway where a nondescript door was set into the graffiti-covered wall. He rapped out a complex pattern on the metal surface, and after a moment, the door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a cramped, cluttered workshop, filled with humming servers and tangles of fiber optic cable. A woman with short-cropped hair and luminous cybernetic eyes glanced up from her workstation, her fingers never ceasing their dance across the haptic interface. "Ethan," she said, her voice cool and modulated, "I wasn't expecting you." "Zara," Ethan replied, stepping into the workshop. "I need your help. We both do." He quickly filled her in on the situation, the living weapons program, Core's unexpected intelligence, and their narrow escape from Araxis. Zara listened intently, her expression unreadable behind her impassive cybernetic gaze. When Ethan finished, she leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. "Intriguing," she murmured. "I've heard whispers of Araxis's secret projects, but nothing on this scale. If what you say is true, this could be the scandal of the century." Ethan nodded grimly. "I need you to dig up everything you can on Araxis's illegal activities. Names, dates, locations. Anything that could expose their schemes. In return, I'll give you inside information on the company, stuff you can sell to the highest bidder." Zara's cybernetic eyes gleamed with anticipation. "You've got a deal," she said, turning back to her workstation. Her fingers flew across the interface, and holographic displays flickered to life around her. "I'll need some time to infiltrate their networks, but if there's dirt to be found, I'll uncover it." Ethan grinned, feeling a surge of hope for the first time since they'd fled Vorta Prime. With Zara's skills and his own experience, they might just have a chance of taking down Araxis and freeing the galaxy from their grasp. But even as he savored this small victory, Ethan knew their fight was just the beginning. Araxis would stop at nothing to recover their valuable property, and he and Core would need to stay one step ahead if they hoped to survive. The neon-lit streets of Neon City offered temporary sanctuary, but sooner or later they would have to confront the corporation head-on. Ethan glanced at Core, who had curled up in a corner of the workshop, his eyes half closed in a semblance of sleep. The Korvac looked strangely vulnerable in that moment, and Ethan felt a fierce surge of protectiveness. He had never asked for this responsibility, but now that it had been thrust upon him, he would see it through to the end. Together, he and Core would expose Araxis's crimes and bring an end to their reign of greed and destruction. Regardless of the cost, no matter the danger, they would fight for the freedom of the galaxy and for each other. The neon-drenched streets of Neon City faded into the rear view as Ethan's shuttle broke atmosphere, carrying its unusual crew towards their next destination. Zara's fingers danced across her portable terminal, sifting through the vast sea of data she had extracted from Araxis's networks. "We've got a solid lead," she announced, her cybernetic eyes flickering with streams of information. "Nexus Prime. It's a hub world, crawling with Araxis operatives. If we're going to find concrete evidence of their crimes, that's where we'll get it." Ethan nodded, setting a course for the distant world. As the stars streaked past the view screen, he glanced back at Core, who watched the cosmos with an almost childlike fascination. Their arrival on Nexus Prime was anything but subtle. The moment they touched down in the spaceport, alarms blared and security forces converged on their position. Ethan, Core, and Zara fought their way through the chaos, ducking into a labyrinth of maintenance tunnels beneath the city's gleaming surface. As they caught their breath in a dimly lit access corridor, a gravelly voice cut through the darkness. "You've stirred up quite the hornet's nest." Ethan spun, weapon raised, to find himself face to face with a scarred, grizzled man leaning casually against a rusted pipe. The stranger's eyes gleamed with a mix of amusement and steel-hard purpose. "Name's Jax Resner," he said, pushing off the wall, "and it seems we have a common enemy." Over the next hour, as they evaded Araxis patrols, Jax revealed his own vendetta against the corporation. His tale of a homeworld ravaged by Araxis's bioweapons struck a chord with Ethan, who saw his own pain mirrored in the mercenaries' haunted eyes. "I've been tracking their operations for years," Jax explained, as they huddled in an abandoned sublevel, "but I never expected to find anything like this." He gestured towards Core, who regarded him with cautious curiosity. Zara's infiltration of Araxis's systems had yielded a wealth of encrypted data, but breaking through their final firewalls proved challenging, even for her considerable skills. "We need to get inside their headquarters," she concluded. "It's the only way to access their core servers and blow this whole thing wide open." Jax's scarred face split into a feral grin. I might have an idea about that. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. Posing as potential buyers interested in Araxis's products, Ethan and Jax would infiltrate the heart of the corporation's power. Meanwhile, Zara would coordinate their efforts from a hidden location, guiding them through the facility's labyrinthine corridors. As for Kor, the alien's role would be the most dangerous of all. He would allow himself to be captured, giving him access to the secure labs where other alien specimens were held. The risk was immense, but Kor's determined gaze left no doubt about his willingness to see it through. The towering spire of Araxis headquarters loomed before them, a monument to corporate greed and unchecked power. Ethan straightened his borrowed executive suit, exchanging a tense nod with Jax as they approached the main entrance. "Welcome, gentlemen," a sleek receptionist droid greeted them. "How may Araxis Industries serve you today?" Ethan plastered on his most convincing smile, years of mercenary work lending authenticity to his act. "We're here to discuss some of your more specialized products. I believe Mr. Araxis himself is expecting us." As they were ushered deeper into the heart of the facility, Ethan's skin crawled with the wrongness of it all. Behind the glossy veneer of efficiency and progress, he could sense the rot at the core of Araxis's operation. Little did he know that the true horrors were yet to be revealed, and that the fate of the stars would hinge on the choices made within these sterile halls. The sterile corridors of Araxis headquarters dissolved into chaos as alarms blared. Ethan and Jax sprinted through the facility, their cover blown. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. "Zara, we need an exit!" Ethan shouted into his comms as he rounded a corner. "Working on it," her voice crackled back. "There's a maintenance shaft 2 levels down. It'll lead you to the sub-level garage." They found Kor waiting for them at the rendezvous point, the Korvac's tentacles stained with hydraulic fluid from disabled security drones. Together, they fought their way to the garage, commandeering a sleek corporate transport. As they sped away from Araxis headquarters, Zara's face appeared on the vehicle's holoscreen. "I've got good news and bad news," she said, her expression grim. "The good news is, I managed to decrypt and broadcast the evidence of Araxis's crimes across every major news network in the sector." "And the bad?" Jax asked, his hands tight on the controls. "We've got bigger problems than Araxis now," Zara replied. "I just intercepted a transmission from the Imperial fleet. Admiral Zervix is leading an invasion force to Zorgath." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Zorgath? But that's—" "My homeworld," Kor finished, his alien features contorted with worry. Without hesitation, Ethan input the coordinates for Zorgath into the nav computer. "We're not letting that happen," he declared. "Zara, start reaching out to every contact you have. We're going to need all the help we can get." As their stolen ship broke atmosphere, Ethan's mind raced. They had just taken on one of the most powerful corporations in the galaxy, and now they were about to challenge the might of the Imperial fleet itself. But looking at Kor, seeing the drive in those alien eyes, Ethan knew they had no choice. The journey to Zorgath was a blur of frantic preparations. Zara worked tirelessly, coordinating with a network of outlaws and rebels. By the time they arrived, a motley fleet had assembled in Zorgath's orbit: mercenary gunships, retrofitted freighters, and even a few decommissioned warships. As they approached the planet, the comm crackled to life. A gruff voice came through. "This is Captain Elara Koth of the Crimson Talon. Heard you boys could use some firepower." Ethan grinned despite himself. "Glad to have you, Captain. We're going to need every gun we can get." The scene that greeted them as they entered Zorgath's atmosphere was one of devastation. Imperial ships hung in low orbit, raining destruction on the planet below. Zervix's ground forces had already begun their assault, advancing on the major population centers. Kor's tentacles writhed in agitation. "We must stop them," the Korvac said, its alien voice filled with urgency. Ethan nodded grimly. "All right, here's the plan. Jax, you coordinate our air support. Keep those Imperial ships busy. I'll lead the ground assault with Kor. We'll use his knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver Zervix's troops." As their ship touched down amidst the chaos of battle, Ethan took a deep breath. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of weapons fire. In the distance, he could see the looming silhouette of Zervix's command center. "Let's move," he said, hefting his pulse rifle. Kor slithered beside him, its body rippling with awe-inspiring energy. They plunged into the fray, leading a charge of Carvian warriors and mercenaries against the Imperial lines. Kor was a whirlwind of destruction, its tentacles lashing out with incredible force. Ethan fought beside his alien friend, his rifle spitting plasma bolts into the ranks of Imperial troops. As they pushed deeper into enemy territory, Ethan's comms crackled. It was Zara, her voice tight with tension. "Ethan, we've got a problem. Zervix is taking hostages. He's threatening to obliterate the entire planet unless you and Kor surrender." Ethan's mind raced. They were so close to the command center, but at what cost? He looked at Kor, seeing his own conflict mirrored in those alien eyes. "We need to end this," Ethan said finally, "one way or another." They pressed on towards the heart of the Imperial stronghold, knowing that the fate of Zorgath, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Ethan and Kor burst into the Imperial command center, weapons raised. Admiral Zervix stood before them, his cybernetic eye glowing with malice. "Surrender, Zervix," Ethan growled. "Your fleet is in shambles, and your ground forces are retreating." The Admiral's lip curled in a sneer. "You think you've won? Fool, I still hold all the cards." He pressed a button on his command console, and a holographic display flickered to life, showing hundreds of Zorgathian civilians corralled into energy cages. Kor's tentacles writhed in distress. "No!" "One word from me, and they all die," Zervix said coldly. "Now, lay down your weapons." Ethan's mind raced, searching for a solution. He locked eyes with Kor, seeing the same purpose reflected in the alien's gaze. In that moment, a plan formed between them, without a word spoken. "All right," Ethan said, lowering his rifle. "You win." As Zervix gloated, Kor suddenly lashed out with lightning speed. His tentacles wrapped around the Admiral's throat, lifting him off the ground. At the same time, Ethan dove for the control console, fingers flying across the interface. "Zara!" he shouted into his comm. "I need you to slice into these systems and release the hostages." "On it," came the reply. Alarms blared as Imperial troops pounded on the sealed command center doors. Ethan worked frantically, trying to disable the planet-killer weapon while Kor restrained the thrashing Admiral. "Got it!" Zara's triumphant voice rang out. "Hostages are free and being evacuated as we speak." Relief flooded through Ethan, but it was short-lived. The doors exploded inward, and Imperial shock troops poured into the room. Kor flung Zervix aside and moved to engage them, his tentacles a blur of motion. Ethan snatched up his rifle and joined the fray, the air filled with plasma bolts and the screams of wounded soldiers. Despite their valiant efforts, they were soon overwhelmed by sheer numbers. As Ethan felt himself being forced to his knees, a deafening explosion rocked the building. The wall behind Zervix disintegrated, revealing the grinning face of Jax Reznor in the cockpit of a hovering gunship. "Need a lift?" the grizzled mercenary called out. Ethan and Kor didn't hesitate. They leapt for the open bay door, plasma fire sizzling past them. As they soared away from the crumbling Imperial stronghold, Ethan allowed himself a moment of triumph. But their victory was bittersweet. The battle for Zorgath had been won, but at a terrible cost. As they flew over the scarred landscape, Ethan knew that this was just the beginning. The Empire's reach was vast, and its cruelty knew no bounds. He looked at Kor, seeing the same fierce willpower in his alien friend's eyes. Together they would take the fight to the Empire itself, and this time they wouldn't be alone.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.